Rock and roll. Kia ora, everybody. What's up? It is Robett. Welcome to Robett Live. Friday for New Zealand. Still I'm in month 7 of lockdown here in America. It's going really great. Politics is live and well, and lockdowns and protests and who knows what. Very lucky on the show today. We have Maori Party co-leader John Tamihere, and obviously other regulars, Cassie Roma, marketing whiz and weapon, and also Holly Bennett. So I know our first guest is very, very busy man. I'm extremely fortunate that he's made some time out of the back-to-backs that he's been doing for months. Ladies and gentlemen, John Tamihere. How are you, brother?
Yeah, beauty, man. Kia ora. Good to see you.
Maybe I'll start here. How do you structure your calendar and you manage your energy load when you go into an election season? Because in the NBA, I'm a sports guy, Kawhi Leonard's famous for, load management and all the rest of it. How do you stack up your emotions and your energy for the long game of weeks of back-to-backs of no sleep and nothing? How do you manage your energy?
Oh, look, I've been, I'm a trained barrister and solicitor or lawyer, right? And what you do is you manage caseloads, and you've got time commitments to hit in regard to either prosecuting or defending. And so I suspect, and because I didn't think this thing through until you just asked me, I suspect my time management and etc. has had to be pretty good, because you've got obligations to people who are hanging out to ensure that you give them the best possible shot you can, right? Mm. So as a consequence, you've got this. You'll have multiple caseloads on the run, and then some are coming to peak time and some aren't. And so certain issues require instant hits. And others you can sort of manage because they're not as burning or as requiring.
When you've obviously been in the game for a minute, how do you manage your professional and personal life in terms of being a dad, being a husband, being a friend, because the workloads of certain industries, of whether a pro athlete, they'll bail off for a couple of weeks or whatever, for relationship management, for the amount of strenuous sort of stuff and workload professionally, how have you sort of navigated friendships and relationships, and also trying to be a good human at the same time as being a good man for other people as well?
Yeah, look, whānau family is a big thing for us, as you know, and I've been lucky enough to have very strong family support. But here's the other beauty about how lucky I am and how privileged I am, is that I've got a wonderful community around Hone Waititi Marae and out here in West Auckland, right? And so they are my extended whānau. So when my kids were growing up, even though I'm from Ngāti Pro, and that's the greatest tribe in New Zealand, of course. And
I would agree. Waipiro Bay hard.
Yeah, Ngāti hard. So even though I was here, we grew and evolved a new dynamic in Māori terms. And my uncles and aunties were from the north, Ngāpuhi and that. And so we just extended our bubble in regard to our tikanga and our customs. And so I'm lucky enough to be embraced by that. And so when my babies were at Koangareo or wherever, there were aunties and uncles that gave them the affection and the love that I couldn't at that moment in time, because I was needed for our community on another front line somewhere, right? And that's the beauty about having strong whānau and strong communities. It frees up people because the love and the affection that they have for you is showered then on your children. And that's point one. Point two is I did make mistakes with my first 2 kids. I got 6, but my first 2, I wasn't there enough because we come from a very poor background, and we had to really flog yourself hours at work, not as productive as you could have been because you're still learning. And didn't spend enough time in their formative years. You try and make up for it later, but you never can, and that's a deep regret. It's a deep regret.
Yeah, so I've got a friend in banking who's done really well for himself, and he's played the game for 30 years. And I asked him, I've got a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old now, and I had a trip, and I was going to be away from them for 2.5 weeks. And then he goes, "Oh, dude, they don't even remember anything till you're 5 anyway. It's totally fine." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know about that." But I was then wondering, when you're on that come up, the sacrifices you actually have to make. So you actually do have regrets from your first career of losing that time. But I guess would you then you probably challenge yourself, would you have got here if you didn't do those hours to do those things for your community and the career path to get you there, right? It's probably a tough balancing act that everyone sort of needs to go through, especially if they get to a high profile, right? It's a tricky one.
Yeah, well, life's always trade-offs and there's compromises required, okay? So long as you don't compromise your principles. Because it's always good to stand straight rather than look like a banana. So I think the question that you've raised, it's all about priorities, and no human being is perfect in that regard in human relations, and we always make mistakes. But the key to our humanity is how we redeem ourselves, after we've made a mistake. And that's the beauty about if you brought up in our sort of philosophy here, you will always have falls, but it's how you fix those falls up and how you heal others that you might have aggrieved, right? If you just keep going through life quite selfishly, you end up a very lonely person.
I was going to say, when you make a big stuff up and you've got public profile, what's the weight of that like to try and make the comeback where everywhere you go, everyone knows your face and everyone knows your name and everyone knows what you've done? And, the upside of, I guess, public life for so many is I get, a lot of upside in so many respects. How do you work your way back after a loss? Because I'm imagining it's not easy, especially when you've got, the profile and the bravado and the confidence is, one may have, and probably many in the political sphere. How do you work your way back?
I don't have losses. I have I don't have losses. Yeah, no, not just learnings. No. Every campaign I've fought in, a whole bunch of our ideas have been implemented within the next cycle, right? And it's solely because we came armed with the contest of ideas, and we were quite vigorous in the advocacy on behalf of our people and their emancipation from being locked into the bottom end of our ancestors' own country. Much the same as our Indigenous people in the United States and Canada, Hawaii, and our brothers Aboriginals in Australia. So we're on a relentless journey of redeeming our position as the First Nations people of this nation, and that doesn't happen in my lifetime. But you know what? My mokopunas, my grandchildren will just about get there, and so I'm quite proud of what my father did with what he didn't have, and what my grandfather did with what he didn't have. So each one of them have set a new platform for me to just drive ahead. That if the present system fails us, we'll design our own, and we'll proceed, and we'll be just successful Maori rather than judged by Pākehā as to not be a good Pākehā Maori.
Yeah, it's the intersection between culture and community. It's starting to, I guess, shift in every generation from the real world of what your grandfather was to your father, to yourself. It's like sort of platforms, right? So maybe on that, a quick segue come into where Māori Party. So it started in 2004.
Yeah,
is that right? 2004.
That's right.
When you think of Māoridom and culture, it's very generational. It's very either respect to the legacy of exactly where we've come from hundreds of years ago, or out into the future. For such a young party, what do you think the story and the narrative has been for the Māori Party to date? Like, if you were writing the book of what it was in a macro generational view, how would you start the story?
Oh, we made some, but Māori Party made some mistakes. One, it allowed its connectivity to its people to fall into disarray, and with that, the organisation of the party. So we've rebirthed it as a intergenerational political movement. And our policy suite this year is a 25-year generational plan. And we will relentlessly, when Māori put a pou in the ground, once you put that pou in the ground, you cannot retreat from it. You can be driven back from it, but then you must relentlessly proceed to advance on it. And so we've put pou in the ground across the whole of everything from education, health, welfare, justice, housing. And we will get there. It's just a matter of when, not if. We have built and will be an enduring political movement for one reason, that New Zealand's got MMP. And prior to MMP was just two tribes that went to war, like the Democrats and the Republicans, right? Labour and National. Yeah. Now we've got a liberated Maori voice that isn't contained and voted down by power blocks of Pākehā and caucuses behind closed doors. So we can speak our liberated truth. Now, it might grate people, that might grate with some people, but never should our truth not be spoken.
What I think was interesting about that, you said, after you put the pau in the ground, you don't stead from that. So a bro of mine, Tepe Katane, he talked about, your morals and ethics I didn't get the wording right, but he basically said, with your morals and ethics should be written in pen, but your strategies should be written in pencil, of kind of what you're about stays true, but these other things sort of pivot.
That's right.
So when you look into the political landscape of, you talk about intergenerational stuff. Now, Rob Campbell, I was talking about politics, and he gave the example of it's quite similar to a playground in New Zealand, where instead of a slide where it's one way and definitive, either going up or down, it's kind of like a seesaw where 4 years this way, 3 years that way, so back and forth. And there was a disconnect between basically we're saying the momentum of the structure that exists and versus the longevity of, I guess, humanity and generations or whatever. How do you feel the political system is built is it better built for generations now, or do you think it could be changed to be better? I mean, I get that seesaw analogy. Do you see it the same way, or do you feel that there's a better way that our political system could be done?
Oh, of course. Look, life and humanity is about evolving a better way for us from the known mistakes that we've just made. What we have, though, is then you have a time bubble where those that have secured significant interest out of the present failing status quo fight like hell to maintain it. As the change agents come, and change agents are firstly labeled erratic mavericks. Not a nervous breakdown that you've had there, robett. And so you're marginalised by reputational damage first, but then pretty soon the righteousness and the justice of what you're saying starts to weigh, and then the weight builds against the failing status quo. Now, in different countries, that takes time and different timelines to ensure that the failing status quo crumbles. For instance, our transition to a green economy, people talk about a green economy, but unless we put sticks and carrots in place, the present status quo, mining out fossil fuels, etc., they're not going to move. Okay? But they hold significant power and lobbying amongst politicians, and pretty soon you'll start to see them fall for the right reason, that they must now start to invest in innovative and new initiatives for their own peoples, rather than just milk their own people.
Yeah, the exploitation of I think there's a saying, time goes undefeated. All of those things where, time goes undefeated. So if it's bad, eventually it will be seen. I guess it's just that you're in the process and you're in the system of trying to, expedite those things which potentially don't feel as good. I was going to ask about culture, right? So say 10 years ago, I failed high school, I couldn't get into university. I was, I guess, an entrepreneur at heart. I'd done stuff. It wasn't cool 20 years ago to try and create anything. Now it's very cool to be, let's rock a hoodie, let's go to Silicon Valley, I feel that culture in New Zealand's tipped over in the last couple of years of that's now the new entrepreneurship. It's now the new cool. It's now the new embracement. And it's awesome, like with the, Maori Language Week, with Te Reo getting integrated into brands and business and, stuff that even like in New Zealand does, all the rest of it. That's great. But when I look at it, I start to get a few little bits of concern, which is about certain individuals trying to exploit culture or empower culture because it's topical for the moment. But you've been there the whole time doing it. What are your thoughts on like cultural empowerment versus exploitation when it comes to business, corporate, and community? Because it's a really funky intersection where you want to support some, but clearly some are trying to take the piss or exploit away. How do you feel about that?
Oh, look, we're in a very difficult moment in time to assess that, and the reason is this: that brand New Zealand on the world stage Māori-related matters are being seized upon, from our tohus all the way through to our graphics and our wording. And so there is a new cultural colonization and appropriation taking place, because we're brought in as the nice natives, do a mihi, a karakia, and then a pōwhiri, and then we're kicked out the back, right? So until we are part of the solution. See, Māoris in New Zealand are seen as a problem waiting to be punished rather than a solution waiting to happen.
Well, it's liability versus asset, and you can see it flipping by the way certain people are starting to utilize culture when it is suitable for them, right? And that's such a key part that I think I've talked about. For like, for example, I was talking about where's the moment that New Zealand feels the most potentially together as one, and it's been a question that I've asked for a few years, and it was essentially a point of, when was culture and community together on the same page? That was Treaty of Waitangi. Cool. Now, when has culture, community, and commerce been affected in the same page for the same thing? That there is unity of purpose for a nation, and there hasn't really been one until COVID. But what was interesting about the appropriation of culture for me was the same people on a Saturday that at 7:35 when the All Blacks play Australia for the Bledisloe are like, feeling super proud, leading with the haka. We lead with culture at the tip of the V on Sunday. And then they're the first person on the Monday at flipping 11 o'clock to go, flipping bloody Maoris, blah, 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 It's like, no. You don't have the right to take culture when it's convenient for you to then use that. And I talked about this for a couple of years, and it feels like it's starting to tip. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to just put the craft on that, because I feel that more and more people are aware that that's becoming a thing, and the thing of culture that was deemed as a liability is very, very clearly turned into a massive asset commercially for those in business as well. So I just wanted to plug that. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, look, you've got to be very careful about tokenism, and us being at the front end, and then off the stage left, out, back, exit. And when the deals are done, we're not part of the economic journey. We're not part of the intellectual stimulation. And because if you're excluded from after they've made out that we are the most integrated, loving, caring society for Indigenous people, which is anything but the truth on the evidence. Taika Waititi said that is just wrong. So so when you contest that, Robett, what happens is that I'm seen as the mongrel, or I'm seen as the bad guy, right? Because when you call out wrong from power elites, they can get very nasty, very naughty. Yeah, but we've got to keep speaking our truth. I raised that point with you earlier. We must speak our truth, even though it might grate others. Yeah, but if it's the truth, it must be spoken.
Well, also, if you've got an intergenerational mentality, you're playing long game when others are playing transactions for the short, right? So it changes the approach into it. So on that point, like, how do you deal with haters? How do you deal with systems of those that, if you're speaking too loud, like in general, there's obviously public hate or backlash or blah, and then there's obviously the backdoor sort of conversations. How do you deal with both those worlds to navigate to the spot where you're at?
Well, look, there's a huge queue of haters out there for me. I've never had a problem with that. And look, I got brought up with 9 brothers and 3 sisters, right? And it was, and I was 9th down the bottom. So, you just
beat
had
downs, mate. Beat downs.
Yeah, but it didn't matter how big they were and how fast and hard they were. They all could be knocked over, right? So it doesn't matter. So it doesn't, for me, it doesn't matter how big and black they are or how white and rich they are as haters. What matters is that as long as you have the justice and the righteousness on your side, the way you express it, though, I've had a problem in my way of expressing. See, some people like you can tell people to buy a ticket to go to hell and they'll buy it, right? I've never had that. I'm not a salesman like that. And so, because I just sort of speak it far more bluntly, because I just come out of working. You can't take the working class out of me. So, so I haven't been able to finesse the messaging where you can bring people across with you. So I've run I'm a very adversarial advocate. Okay, and so you need a lightning rod though on some parts of our movement, and that gives space to those in the middle. So my job has always been to lead out, and brothers and sisters to get the leverage, capture their leverage in the middle, and they drag Parkers across to our po. You see, so you need lightning strikes, and you need people out in the front that make people feel uncomfortable, that speak the truth.
So there's something interesting in that. Strategically, were you aware that this energy would come, but you were happy to throw yourself under the bus, knowing that you could take all that weight, so it would open those doors for others? Like, was that a conscious decision, strategically knowing that that would come, so you could take the heat to that for potentially others that maybe couldn't have?
Yeah, look, well, I would only, my wife, we made this decision about 25 years ago, that instead of going downtown and making squillions for ourselves personally, because she was a director at KPMG, I could have picked up a top job in one of the big four law firms downtown as the token native, and done very well. And some of my colleagues did. But here's the problem with them. They cross the bridge and they never look back. And that's something, as a Maori, you should never do. Right? You're only as good as your brothers and sisters' difficulty. And so we have to advance that. So we made a decision about 25 years ago that money's great, but it ain't everything. And if we live comfortably in a loving, caring community and environment with our babies, we'll be happy with that, right? So we made that decision. And then because of my fierce advocacy, you get one stereotype, you get pigeonholed, all that sort of stuff. But you know what? I haven't been down for the count. Been left the ring a few times, but bruised, but no one's put me down for the count.
No, you don't lose, right? Remember, you don't lose.
Yeah, that's right. Never.
No, it's so on the how this has kicked off is we had Holly Bennett on the show last week bringing up a point around Maori role, and there was a question around the compulsion for Maori to potentially go into the Maori role like separate. Why?
Oh, well, we're the only Indigenous people in the world that are locked out of the election cycle for two elections. And the reason for that is that it's only Māori that are forced to take options, right? But those options aren't every election. Those options are every 2 elections. So about 80% of us, under the law, fall out of sync. And then along comes an option. But if you've been locked out of the political and democratic system for 6 years, and you're a young Māori voter, you no longer vote. That's why our voting's low. That's point 1. Point 2, you've got to look behind the policy of that law. That law is about assimilation. It's about destroying the Māori seats over time, right? And so the Māori Party says, if you're proud enough to say you're a Māori, you immediately get enrolled in the Māori roll, okay? You then have an option off. See, at the moment, it's an opt-in option rather than an opt-off.
So that's similar to the driver's license around being a donor, right? Similar type thing. Yeah. But the upside of that is that so then you've got a bigger database of power and community to have more either future influence, or is it the idea of like because when Holly brought it up to me, I said, well, is that kind of everyone should have their choices, blah, blah, blah. But if a choice is forced on me, that then doesn't potentially feel like I like that. Do you feel it as a moment to force, or like how do you? Because that would be the token thing, right?
Well, you're forced now. To be outside the system for 6 years. So all I'm saying to you is let's wake up to our entitlement to act in a democracy. That's point 1. Point 2, you immediately get enrolled on the Māori roll, right? And then if you want to opt off, you can. But it's not done this way now. So I get what you say. Now, if everyone went on the Māori roll and they saw the power of Māori at 15 to 17 seats,
there you go.
A constant brokering power for government, stuck in the middle of the Constitution as the treaty promised. Then they'd wake up and they'd go, wow, I'm proud to be a Māori because my vote counts for my people every election. And here's the other thing, I bow to no one else. I don't bow to Labour, I don't bow to the Greens, and I don't bow to National. And that is such an empowering process to go through of reclaiming our mana in our own country.
So process for independence, but then having the collective of them under one mix.
Yeah.
I can say, I mean, I'll be interested to ask Holly on the thing as well. She obviously understands that well better than, obviously don't know politics as much well, but I'm really interested to learn, especially for stuff like this. You know, you get older, you start thinking about your flipping kids and all these other things of the future, and you start thinking long game, and it sort of changes. I was going to ask you about when you went for mayor last year.
Yeah.
Was it last year? What was the biggest thing you thought was broken in Auckland that wanted you to do that? Because it's a big jump. Like, what was there one thing you were like, this is stuff? What was the tipping point that made you want to pull the trigger to try?
Well, look, I've worked with Gough before in the Labour Party, right?
Yeah.
I was a minister in the cabinet with him. A number of white folk in New Zealand are born to rule, privileged and entitled, and think darkies can't think. Right? He's one of them.
Tell us what you really think, mate.
He's one of them. No, but he's one of them. Oh, look, it's the truth, though. So we've got a major housing crisis here because it's on the supply side, but also it's not taxed like it is elsewhere. And so those of you that are in the housing game and have a house have pulled the ladder up. You know, in a major recession in this country, in the worst quarter in its history, house prices went up 5%. 5%. It's like going to a casino where you can never lose. But if you're not on the housing ladder, you're locked out. And our people, because of their income, are double locked out. So what I said, we build houses, right? We just finished 120 houses over in Waterview as part of a development. What we said to Gough was land. The council has land. But he says to me, no, that land will be 30% affordable, 30% for millionaires, and 30% for social housing, right? But I said to him, look, name one community in this country that is made up with that nirvana of social engineering. There ain't any. Have a look in the States.
Yep. No, it doesn't exist. Well, they'll put Section 8 and certain things that it changes the dynamic, and then there's tension and the community revolts. Yeah.
Well, so he said to me, I grew up in Papatoetoe, and we got surrounded by Otara and Mangere. And Otara and Mangere, I said to them, they're poor people there. They're not bad people, right? They're lower income people. They're not bad people. Those communities aren't bad just because they're social housing. Not in New Zealand. There's other tenements elsewhere which is terrible. And so he started to go down this track. Well, because I wanted, we're now in the Human Rights Tribunal. We'll win that case against Gough. But there was a tipping point, you know, the arrogance, the entitlement, the privilege of telling our people that only a few of you can live here. Because if there's too many of you, it'll turn into a ghetto. We don't have them. New Zealand doesn't have ghettos, has poor communities. Yeah. So there was a tipping point.
And then you're like, stuff it, I'll give it a crack.
Yeah, well, you either sit on the couch moaning or you get off the couch and have a go.
There's a group chat of mine with a bunch of the Corona, and one is very extremely, I wouldn't say couch warrior, but text couch warrior. And it's finally like, mate, if you're smart enough, if you got flipping something to do, get in there and do it. Before you go, last final quick things, quick fire. Should weed be legalized? Yes or no?
Yeah, it should be decriminalized. Here's the thing: it should be two steps, right? Decriminalization first, right? Because we don't have enough belts and braces around mental health and addiction services in New Zealand.
Yep.
Full stop. And so, as you head towards legalization, particularly in our communities, okay, because I'm from West Auckland, we smoke like chimneys. So the thing is, we understand the game, right? And so we want laws made by us for us. It's a bit like the euthanasia legislation, right?
Yeah, yes or no on that?
Well, no, because right now today, Maori contract cancer 10 years ahead of Pākehā, but not allowed to be screened. So hundreds and hundreds of our people will contract cancer. They'll end up in a very gory, difficult prognosis, and they will die as they do 7 years earlier than Pākehā's. If the euthanasia bill kicks in, it'll be the kill the Maori bill. They'll knock them off a lot earlier. So you've got to understand it from our side of the street. If you're a well-informed Pākehā, white person, with a health insurance and all the whānau stuck around you that are informed and know, it's cool. But you know what? One of my aunties just had a heart turn and went into hospital, Tauranga, got placed in front of her without any whānau support, a consent form to not resuscitate. Now that's happening now. Can you imagine what will happen to us as a poor, ill-informed people suffering depression, stress, and suffering from a lot of other disabilities? Can you imagine what's going to happen to our people? I don't. It's not. And here's the other thing: the democracy is so degraded that you go to a quick fire raffle to tick a box to kill someone or tick a box not to. How sad indictment on our society is that?
That's a really interesting take on such a big issue. I hadn't thought of that. It's a bloody great answer. Actually, I'm going to ponder on that. Before we go, pick a
You
color.
better vote for me. You better vote for me.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, plug your stuff now. Plug away. What's your website? What's the website? Maoriparty.co.nz, is it?
Yeah.
Pick a color. Oh, actually, this is political. There you go. Pick a color.
Black.
All right. I didn't realize I'd already gone meta. Okay. Who is your favorite hero of fiction?
Oh, hero of fiction. Oh no, King Arthur.
King Arthur. Wait a second. Is non-fiction means not real, or is non-fiction real?
Well, he was fictional with Merlin and all the rest of it, right?
Oh, okay. So I don't see one. He just sounds like a real person. Okay, I'm dumb. You're smart. That's cool. Appreciate it, bro. Hey, thanks so much for the time. I know it's tapped and busy. Is there any what message would you like to say to the average New Zealander that has heard of you, doesn't have context of what you're about, but is interested and cares about New Zealand that may or may not be Maori? What would you say to them?
Get on the same page. because you know I'm in an era of my life now where we've committed ourselves to continue to organise and build and administer this enduring Māori movement, and it's just a matter of time when we are successful, not if. It's because it's just going to be relentless, as I said to you before. So understand that the wealth of our nation was founded off our stolen assets, and until we have equality of opportunity that was promised in the treaty 180 years ago, it'll never happen. Your uncle and my uncle, Robett, Siapirana Nata, he wrote a pamphlet in 1943. It was called The Price of Citizenship. And he opined in the rising of the Māori battalion that he would send his nephews to die in a white man's war, so his Pākehā friends would awaken to the rights of his people to be treated as equally as them, as was promised in Article 3 of the treaty. 180 years later, his nephew's still asking. Unacceptable. So I'd like them to think about that.
Well, when it's long game, it's definitely different with how they approach it. I appreciate your time, bro. Thanks so much, and best of luck with the election. Awesome. Thanks for the time, bro.
Cheers, bro.
Shot, brother. Jingle bells. We're getting leaders of parties now. It's episode 259. We're getting active. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, political weapon actually helped kick off last week trying to get John on the show, and I made that happen. Ladies and gentlemen, Holly Bennett, how are you?
Kia ora, I'm good. How are you?
Are you good or you hungover? It looks like you're a Napier and you've been on the piss.
No, you're not supposed to tell these people. I tell you
sorry.
via text in advance so that you're not.
You do not look hungover, and the audio is sounding great. So that's
awesome.
What did you think of that?
So he didn't answer the question, and as the host, you should have asked him, but why is it that they need to be forced on the Māori role? So the thing that Matua John talked about was that there's a 6-year election cycle, 6-year gap in between.
I didn't know that.
So but he's articulated. I didn't have those details. I thought it was every 3 years, but basically every 6 years they open the Māori role. You can go on to the Māori role if you choose, and then it closes again for another 6 years, and you can't do it. So he's talking about an issue, but provided a solution which doesn't meet the problem. What he should be doing, which is what we discussed last week, is change that. You should make it that Māori can move at any time. Then it's my choice that I can do it at any time. And that's what I said to you last week. That is the better policy. Why wouldn't they do that? Don't force me, because I've made the decision. I've gone from both roles and I've chosen to go back to general. Don't force me to go to Māori role, because I've made that choice for myself.
So, it's based around the census. Yeah, there's a couple of ones in there which is super interesting, and even just the euthanasia thing was a really different lens as well.
So again, I'm going to disagree with what he said. So it's like ticking a box, and this is respectful disagreement, right? Because I really like John, and he's fantastic. And also, John, if you're watching, Dad says to say hello.
Oh, jeez. Well, it's not his fault. It's your fault that I got it. It was great, but no, it's these things matter. But go for it.
With the euthanasia thing again, it's not something that's been dreamt up, and it's just that it's to tick a box to decide this. Sorry, this process for euthanasia started in 2017. It went before select committee. It got the most submissions that any issue before our New Zealand Parliament has got ever. I think it was something like 41,000 submissions. That's 41,000 New Zealanders who decided that they were going to put their whakaaro to paper and put that into Parliament. And what the Parliament then had to do, so the select committee that was hearing it then said, okay, given it is such a serious issue, if we're going to try to do every single person that wants to be heard, kanohi ki te kanohi, face to face by our committee, we will make that happen. So it had to get extended and extended and extended because so many people were either pro or against. But the point of a democracy is to hear what those views are. We are now at the tail end of this to see if the will of the people want it or not. But the whole process took over 3 years. We didn't just get here to have it as a box ticking exercise. I think that's disingenuous to paint it like that.
Man, I can't wait for you to get into politics. It's a great
Who
point.
says that that's going to happen? Everyone keeps painting this picture, and I love doing what I do as a lobbyist. It's great.
Oh, jeez. My whole game plan is I've just got screen grabs of everything bad people have said, and in 20 years, I'm going to blackmail everyone I know.
How many things of mine have you got?
I think what was really cool about it is he's gone to the bit that I thought was really interesting with that is how the strategy of what he decided 25 years ago to be the lightning rod at the front, knowing he's going to take all that flack to leave that space. It's a really strategic move, and I think it's hearing someone articulate, oh, hey, my career, I decided to do this 25 years ago, so I would do this. I've known I'm going to do it. You have then reacted to that, but then it's left that sort of the wake for others. And I think that's actually it's such an amazing ninja move of smart thinking and long game opportunity. So I appreciate that you'd brought the stuff up last week. It was cool that obviously we had to connect to be able to get through them, and he made the time.
Absolutely.
Like that's super cool.
Absolutely.
And so maybe from your side this last week, what has mattered most to Miss Holly Bennett this week?
I think the big thing is the Colmar Brunton poll that came out yesterday. It basically showed the lay of the land for what Parliament might look like after the election, which is next week. So we've got...
What's the vibe?
So it was, this is going off the top of my head, 47% Labour, 32% National, 8% ACT, 6% Greens, and then 2% New Zealand First, so they'd be out.
Ooh, ACT seems to be popping.
ACT
social game is, I'm telling you, there's a direct correlation between solid social trolling and the poll numbers. And so what do you think? So what do you think, if that goes through, what would that mean partnerships could potentially look like? So Winston Peters is out, Labour partners with someone else. How does this play out if that was to happen?
So on that polling number, if that came to fruition, Labour would have to partner with Greens to get enough seats, because again, it goes down to this number of 61, and I'm not sure if you've heard that number bantied around before, but basically it relates to 120 seats in Parliament, for proportional representation, and you have to have 61 to get anything through the House. So that's why you're looking for that number of 61 or more. So Labour, I don't think they're not there yet, on that polling number at 47%. So they would still need Greens.
Polls are crap, I was polled last night, and it was rigged. Top was not an option for one of the questions. So on that, I put a post up a couple of days or whatever, saying, hey, right now, who would you trust the most financially to get through? And the reason why top wasn't on there, just so everyone knows, is I took the top 4 percentage numbers that were on, because LinkedIn only allowed you to have 4, not the other party. There's Maori Party top and the rest of it. So that was the reason why. But the social mafia for top came out heavy on the polls, and we're just going to town. So do you think they'll get in this into this election, the top crew? How do you think they're going?
They need to be polling at 5% or more, and they're not. So because that's how it works under MMP. So the minor parties have to poll at 5% or more unless they get a seat, and doesn't look like any of their candidates are leading in any of the seats. So that's then becomes something that's unrealistic. So then you have to say, are they going to get 5%? And that's the same thing that New Zealand First have as well, in that they don't have a seat, and so they need to get 5%. And they did get 5% last election. Now they're polling at 2%, so that looks like them out. Unless, of course, like Shane Jones gets whangarei. It's up north.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
What else is bubbling from?
I thought that was a really, really interesting indicator, because it was almost like a switch from, I think that was similar polling or actually not for ACT, but for the main parties last at 2017, but it was flipped. So you had National at this time on 47% and Labour at that time around 32%. So when everyone keeps asking me to cast what my viewers, I always say, like, anything can happen, because we're now seeing a flip. So I would say, I would again say anything can happen. In terms of everything else, there was a town hall debate, so another leaders debate between Jacinda and Judith. I only watched a small proportion of that. It was a traditional style debate, where you get the crowd involved and they get really, really hearty, and that was good. But both, from what I saw, both leaders were using it, really to show their feistiness, come out fiercely, leave nothing behind. And we're now 7-8 days from election day, so it's next week, and I've already voted.
So who'd you vote for?
I'm not telling you.
Oh, okay. So just double checking.
Yeah.
I got Bevis just said, think on that, Robett. Bevis, what would you? There's a lot I probably need to think about, Bevis. If you'd like to let me know what I need to think about, that would be great. Certainly a lot, but Bevis, feel free to let me know what I need to think.
Yeah. Total with that. He needs to
think on that. Well done, Bevis. You got me. I need to think on it. Okay, very cool.
Awesome. Yeah,
Biggest
but
thing
I did really enjoy listening to Mato John. I think some of the things that he says, hands down, 100%, I'm behind him and agree with him. And I think he would have been great for Tamaki Makaurau as mayor, and that's unfortunate.
You reckon?
Didn't work out. Yeah, because as he said, he pulls no punches. He says what he thinks. And I like that kind of politics. I think it's great because you know where people stand. And I know I've said that to you before. There's a few MPs like that in Parliament, and I love it. Because it's like, I don't have to agree with you, but I know what you think, and that's great.
Yeah. No, it would be interesting how it's going to roll out. So it's not far away. The world is kind of all connected, all at the hip between American politics, New Zealand politics, everything. It's, what a time to be alive. 2020, the year of carnage. And what's bubbling for the next week in politics that you're most excited about leading up to the election? Any last things that are happening which you're just hyped about?
I think that there's a young lobbyist coming out with a call against her industry next week.
Oh, I heard about that. What day are we expecting that?
Tuesday.
Okay, very cool. Good timing. Or Tuesday, they get into the flow of things and hit them where it hurts on Tuesday. Makes sense.
Yeah, and we can have a big conversation about that on Friday.
Happy to. I love your work, Holly. Enjoy the rest of the weekend and your travels, and be good. And I think there's like this blue bottle of Powerade right over your right shoulder. I think it's just right there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Love your work. Thanks, Holly.
Kia ora. Thanks, bro. Ka kite.
See ya. Bye. Holly Bennett, such a good human, and solid banter. She's political weapon. She had brought up the Maori seat stuff last week, so we managed to be able to get get John on this week, which was cool to talk about some stuff, crank it through, and then into the mix. All right, that is us. And then last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, good friend Cassie Roma. How are you, Cassie?
Good morning.
Oh,
I'm
I
good.
like the color
I'm good.
coordination. Look, I see what you did there.
Completely unintentional. I can tell you that for a Friday morning.
Okay. So have you don't look like you're in your running gear? No run so far?
No run today. It is school holidays, so it's mom day today.
Okay. How's the week been? What's the biggest thing that's been bubbling in your world, Miss Cassie
Week's
Roma?
been awesome. Week's been fantastic. Spent a lot of time with friends and family, and I think the last maybe 15 hours has been the most rollicking ride in politics.
Oh yeah, yes.
The biggest player of the 2020 elections, I think, worldwide has just come into being. The fly on Mike Pence's head. I was amazed.
For those who aren't aware, last night's presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Pence. Old mate got a fly on his head with his nice white shiny locks. There was a black fly, which has then taken over. So it's gone viral. Fly's gone viral. Viral
the fly itself has been called an American treasure by pundits, and like everything. Last night's debate was interesting because while it was still a lot of kind of fisticuffs, it was a bit more, I guess you could say, respectful than the presidential ones. So the vice presidential debate, Kamala handled herself very, very well. But that fly, that is going to be a moment like the Oreo dunk in the dark moment. I think people will be talking about that for yonks and yonks. The amount of content, if you just search fly and Pence, the amount of content that people are creating right now is beautifully hilarious.
The internet goes undefeated.
It does. I love humans. I mean, humans really step up and deliver in times where like
humans.
That's right. They could have actually, like, you want to call it a shit show. It makes sense that a fly as an omen would be what people are talking about today. But I really liked that, and I liked the commentary around it.
Yeah, I was just going to say the speed of execution from that happening to the memes to then even, you'd sent the link through before, the productization of a fly swat being on his website and instantly selling out. And it was $10. I mean, people buy them for $10. Those things will be on sale on eBay by tomorrow for probably $400, $500.
That's right. There are, and it just had me thinking all night. I was actually up at 3:30 this morning thinking about the brilliance of, you Google online, you can look at brand strategy, you can look at content strategy, you can look at MarTech and content, just how to push it out. But really, if you pay attention to culture and you can execute up with context super quick, you can't beat that. Like Biden had that post out about the fly swatter within less than an hour. And I think there were 200 different Twitter accounts now about the fly.
Yeah. The speed of how it rolls, it probably validates the point of real-time creativity to things that matter can convert community into either customers or whatever else as well. So there's a power in that, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. And so what else is bubbling away?
What else is bubbling away? Oh, I think it's all just going to be politics for the next few weeks, to be honest. I think a lot of businesses are trying to figure out how to create and to storytell in and around a context that we're definitely told not to tiptoe into, which is probably a good thing for a lot of businesses that aren't directly associated with politics as well. But I reckon it's going to be politics. And then I also have started to see a lot of Christmas ads for that. I got served my first stocking stuffers ads, and I'm just like,
it's begun.
We're putting a tree up on Sunday.
What? It's October.
We're biting the bullet. We're doing it. You know what? We're just calling it a year. Trees going up. We're doing it. We're just going to celebrate from here until.
Is it a symbol of trying just to happily say goodbye to the shit show that was 2020?
I think it's multidimensional. Last year, because I was working in retail, I was a Grinch. I was full on Grinch mode. So my poor family deserved like a do-over. So we're going to double the time this year of our Christmas festivities and listen to music and just be silly. Our living room dance parties can now be Christmas music, festive music.
Oh, geez. Are you allowed to talk about your book yet?
I can talk a little bit about my book. It's on its way.
A little tease.
The little tease.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote most of the book last year, actually. I thought, as we read through like marketing books and the landscape of what people consider professional books. I mean, look at me considering professional anything. I thought there wasn't anything about marketing that actually didn't take itself too seriously and made me laugh. So I started to think about some of the most interesting stories and lessons I've learned. And I started to also reflect on the questions I get asked by my clients most often. And thought, how can I package this up in a way that even people not in the marketing industry or the advertising industry would read and go, oh, shit, that's what's going on. That's what's happening. So I wrote a book that's called Fuck You Marketing, P.S. I Love You. It's basically a middle finger and a big bear hug to an industry I accidentally got into. And I'm really excited to launch it. It's going to be probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks. We'll let the elections run out and we'll push it.
Yeah, I've got one of the draft copies. I'm slowly making my way through it, and it's like a timestamp for the marketing world of what's right and wrong and good and bad. It feels like a journal entry in the history of marketing to the moment. Is that a good, fair representation?
That is a very fair representation, which is why there's one empty chapter right now about the shit show of 2020 that I have yet to write because my heart isn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
But once that one's done, we'll rock and roll into it. But I mean, the stories are actually timeless, really. When you think about some of the interesting email conversations we have, the slang that marketers use in the industry, Slanguage and Saturdays, all of that kind of stuff, you just kind of step back and it's nice to be able to giggle at yourself because I'm guilty of all of the shit in that book, guilty of every single thing. Or
it's the classic where everyone's trying to be like hip and different, but they all wear exactly the same thing because they're trying to be hip and different. And whether it's the roll-up pants, top knot with the flipping, all that same like the creative 101 outfit.
Yeah.
Well, look, in San Francisco, there's a full thing of like there's the hipster sort of code guy, and there's the VC dude with the half Patagonia vest with the dress shirt. Like it's a thing. I
was sitting on Ponsonby Road yesterday having lunch and could literally, from the people walking by, I could tell you their job title, probably what they're earning, and most likely the clients they're working on. I was like, okay, Allbirds, black jeans, tight, rolled, black t-shirt, a little bit askew. I know you're a creative director.
You're forgetting you get the little bit of the beard with the little whites coming through some of that. Mm-hmm. Well, I remember it from when in the States in San Fran, it was all like Nikes and Lululemons. It was like Nike Frees and Lululemons. And then I was came back to New Zealand. I said, you watch Ponsonby Road in 2 years, it's going to be Lululemons, Nike Frees, Lululemons for 5.0s. And then it's like, what happened? Boom, 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 boom.
We've transitioned to Allbirds now. So it's just... everybody's in Allbirds. Keeps your feet warm when it's cold, cold when it's warm.
Yep. Tim Brown, good human, good Kiwi. He's in San Fran.
Fave brand. Yeah, fave brand.
What are you most excited for the next, over the weekend? What's bubbling? What's coming up?
Over the weekend, I think I'm most excited for just a moment of rest because as much as, I'd like to say that politics is the big driver right now. This week's been a big week of juggling life and motherhood and family. And my wife's just launched a huge project. And so we're all in this project mode. So just to slow down and find that little rhythm.
Appreciate your time, Cassie. I'm slowly making my way through 122 pages of PDF so far, so there's some stuff in there.
Sorry, bro.
No, it's good. No,
Yeah.
it's good. All right, be good. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Cassie. See you soon. Bye. All right, Cassie Roma. FU Marketing, PS I Love You, going to be coming out before Christmas, 6-8 weeks. Pretty cool show today. A lot of politics. And next week, hopefully we've got a special guest which will be joining on, which will be good as well. All right. And then finally, what else? I do have one last thing I would like to talk about. I was on the phone last night with a friend of mine. He's a very, very smart man. And we were just talking about a few things. And he asked me a question around my hat. He said, my hat. So I'll get my hat. And my hat. And he was actually asking a question of like, do I feel more comfortable in this? Is I guess why I wear my hat, really. Always wore my hat. And I thought I'd address the hat. So when I came from Snowboard World, I would always wear my snowboard sort of headband or goggles or helmet, and then I would have my snowboard goggles and then my do-rag. And whenever I was about to go into a competition or drop into something or get ready to go and whatever, I would have my goggles up, face mask on, goggles go down, and then I'd be like in the zone. I'd be zoned out. I'd be keyed in with what I was going to do. And when I've transitioned to business, I've always had my hat, and I always have my glasses. Now I obviously can't see shit if I take my glasses off, but I then was making the correlation of, is my hat and my glasses similar to the way I would go my helmet and thing. I know it's so stupid, but so all I'm doing is basically I've taken off the shield or the mask of vulnerability for my hat as if it was gonna lock me in, and just do that. I do kind of feel a bit weird without it, but I don't really care. But it was a very good insight to wondering what happened to me as a young buck, up and coming snowboarder to get in the zone. It's challenging, without that safety net there. Can I still get in the zone? I think the answer is probably yes. So maybe if I don't need to wear that, sometimes I don't need to wear the hat, even though literally the entire time I always wear hats. Personal challenge for myself. That's all. All right, team. Hope you have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thanks. A big, massive thanks to our guest, John Tamihere, co-leader of the Maori Party, giving some good context there. Holly Bennett, Cassie Roma, and then also brightfire.co.nz, free business education, events, a bunch of cool stuff, and also stream through switch.stream. Enjoy the day, team. I'll see you soon. Peace.